Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Bret Lueder Show. Thank you for joining us. Today is a very special day. I am lucky to be a part of this eTalk.tv live haunted marathon. It's I guess you could call it a tribute to Halloween, although we're going to find out, I think, with my next guest, that the tribute to Halloween is really not what we should be doing. I kind of chuckle.
Yeah.
Um, before I introduce my wonderful guest, pastor, exorcist, and author Jess Parker, I just want to give you guys a heads up. The show that follows me is called The Energy That Surrounds Us with Michael Kopf. That's from 2 to 4 p.m. Pacific time, then followed by Reperception with JP at 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific time, and then from 6 to 9 p.m. Pacific time is Late Night in the Rockies. So that goes a little later, the more east you go on the in the United States. All of them are going to be great shows. I don't know all the shows that are going to be on tomorrow, but I know Beyond the Strange with Dave Cruz. That's a show you don't want to miss. So anyway, thank you guys for joining me. I really feel, that this is a special occasion for a variety of reasons, which you're going to see here shortly. Jess Parker has been pastoring for, I bet you, at least 40 years. We'll hear the exact number from him. And he's got his own ministries called TDS Ministries, Tearing Down Strongholds Ministries. Right now, that's kind of couched within the Church of Glad Tidings in Yuba City, California. If the viewers will remember, last year at this time, episode 19, I interviewed Dave and Cheryl Bryan, the lead pastors at this church. Jess has worked with them for decades. They have got more stories about demons than my arms are long, and my arms are pretty long. I've been called a gorilla before in the past. So, among other reasons, because my arms are long. But it is really, truly an honor for me to introduce this guest today. He's the author of To Hell with Sarah. This is a book that you see right on my screen right here. I have a copy of it right here that's heavily marked because as I studied mind control over the years and got into exorcisms and demons a little bit later, um, this book actually blew my mind open with some of the information, not only with the history of the Germans, the history of the lady Sarah Heckler that he was casting out demons with, but also because of the crossover between mind control and demonology. That blew me away. That tidbit of information is not in any other books that I've ever read. And Jess is writing a new book also too. It's called The Hell of Demons. We're hopefully gonna prod him to get that book done. He's got a website called inyourfacedemons.com. If any of you out there, if the listeners feel like they have struggles with these kind of issues, you can go there and get help. And I know I've seen many things at this church, at Church Glad Tidings. Uh, People can get help with this. They might not think this is what's ailing them, but I always recommend trying this angle because most of the time these guys work for free, and what I've learned is that demons are so pervasive. It's like water. So anywhere that there's a crack in a cup, water will try to get through. That's just like demons. Anytime you open a doorway, demons will try to get in. And at the risk of sounding crazy at this stage, I really don't care anymore. I've had too many experiences myself. Many of those experiences have come with my next guest. So please join me in welcoming to the Bret Lueder Show, Jess Parker. Jess, thank you for your time.
Sure, Brett. It's nice to be here.
Wonderful. I know you're a super busy guy, and I feel really lucky, not just because I'm getting to do this E-Talk live marathon, but because just to be able to get you nailed down in a 2-hour time slot is not an easy thing to do. So thank you.
You're very welcome.
All right. So, Jess, when I first met you, it was in a deliverance in 2015. I had come down there looking for help for a girlfriend of mine who an entity came through and talked to me, and I'm normally not a person who lacks words. When this happened to me, I was speechless. I mean, her eyes, they were still white eyeballs, but the irises were all completely black, so they're like giant pupils. Her eyes became a little bit slanted like this. She walked across my bedroom with like a completely different gait, like kind of like this, like it was a man, right? And her voice was different. And this thing began to rip me a new one, man. Oh, Bret, you think you're the cock of the walk. You think you're the best thing that ever hit the earth. Oh, and just berated me, and I was stunned because this woman would never, act like that. So I said some prayers that night, Jess. Later to help this girl. Later that night, I was at the law study group. A good friend of mine out of nowhere turns and says, "You got to go to this church in Yuba City, California, because they had a magical battle with the wizard and they defeated him using the name of Christ." 12 hours later, I was sitting in a deliverance. My first deliverance was with Cheryl Bryan. Later that day, I got in a deliverance with you. And I believe, if I remember correctly, you were rebuking rejection demons. And
Yeah.
that was the first real category within your tradition, within the tradition that you practice within, of the various different categories of demons. And if some traditions name the demon, like Despater was one that you had to deal with once, we'll talk about him. The general tradition at Church of Glad Tidings or in TDS Ministries is that you name the demon by its vice. Let's start there. Why do you guys do that?
Well, that's not always the case, Bret. But
Okay.
let me say first, to try to become too precise, too exact in categorizing demons will involve error. What I do is I put them in two loose camps. You have the tempters; those are the ones that would tempt you to steal, to murder, to rape. Then you have the tormentors, and those are the ones that would torment you with fears and anxiety. And so, in those two camps, I did a series called "In Your Face Demon," and I actually did a study on each one of them: anger, anxiety, abuse, depression, discouragement. And so most often we will name a demon by what he does to the person. If he causes the person to go into deep depression, we call him depression. Now, sometimes in the course of a session where we're praying, he will give us his real name. And he'll say, "I'm not depression, I'm Jerry." I say, "Why are you Jerry?" "Because I came from her father, Jerry." And I had one demon name, give me a name. And he said, "Because 4 generations back, I entered this woman." So anyway, a long answer to your question. We normally will categorize them: anger, fear, anxiety, depression. But sometimes they tell us what their name is.
Okay. In magical traditions, if you know the name of the being, you have the power over them.
Oh, yeah.
So that
I've asked a demon, "What's your name?" He said, "I'm not telling you my name. If I tell you my name, it'll give you power over me."
okay.
So,
That's confirmation of that. So my Druid priestess teacher wasn't totally lying to me. Okay. So let's go back to the beginning here. Where did you start becoming a pastor, and how long have you been doing that?
well, I became an associate pastor in 1975, and so that was my first ministry, and I've been pastoring ever since. Um, so, well, that 25, almost 48 years.
Wow. Okay. Almost as long as I've been alive. That's incredible.
Yeah.
And I know for a fact you've seen some incredible things over the years. I know that because I've seen, in the short time that I've been there and doing your deliverances, I've seen some pretty incredible things. And let me just share a quick story. So one time I came down to visit during a deliverance. After you were done, most of the people are done, and every so often there's 1 to 3, let's say, that keep going longer, right? And ushers or prayer warriors will be there, laying hands on somebody, maybe reciting scripture, rebuking the demons, telling them to leave. One time you came and sat next to me and said, "Hey, Bret, how you doing? Great to see you." And over your shoulder, there was 3 or 4 older ladies, little tiny little gals, and the young buck was getting up and screaming at him, cursing at him with all kinds of swear words, and at one point picked up a chair and threw it at him, and they just patiently moved to the side, let the chair fly by. They went back and started hitting him with scripture again. And I'm sitting, we're talking, you're in a conversation with me. I'm looking over your shoulder at this, blown away by what I'm seeing. You're acting like nothing's going on, right? It's just every day. And I go, "Jess," I go, are you going to get up and do something about that? And you laughed and you said, you know, Brett, every so often you have to see what these people got, right? The
Yeah.
people that are saying the scriptures, that are trying to cast the demons out. And
Yeah.
that just was one of the many times I was just blown away by what I saw at the deliverances. Most people don't think that demons are real. And even the ones that do don't think they're as pervasive as they actually are. Can you describe that situation? What are we in for here?
Well, there's billions of demons all around us. And the reason that people don't think they're here is because we put on masquerades. Like in, let's say, in third world countries where there's no doctors, they have to depend on Christ to heal them or they're going to die. And they usually go to a witch doctor to take care of their demonic stuff. But here in the States, there was a lie that was perpetrated 500 years ago by Satan that said a Christian can't have demons, and they tacked the name possession onto demon possession, when actually the word possession is nowhere in the Bible. The translators in the King James Bible in 1611, because of their mindset, if you look and see Europe, those big universities are big, huge, ugly gargoyles on them, and that was their concept of a demon. And they didn't, so they thought if a person has a demon, that demon is going to totally possess them. That's not the case. I've cast demons out of tiny kids. I don't even use the word demon, and I don't even use the word spirit. If their mother and father says they have a problem with lewdness, they want to play with themselves, or they want to strip their clothes off, or if they want to fondle some of their playmates, opposite sex, whatever, then when they come in, I don't say demon, I don't say spirit, I just say uncleanness. And they'll be playing on the floor. I'll throw some Tinker Toys out there and they'll be playing on the floor while I'm casting demons out of them. And if they do become conscious of that, Bret, I'll just tell them, listen, these things are like little bugs. And he said, I want you to jump up and down and stomp them under your feet. And so they're having a great time. They're stomping them under their feet. And I'm watching those demons. They'll stop and burp, or they'll stop and yawn, or they'll say, Mommy, my eyes are hurting me. Because when demons leave your eyes instead of your mouth or your nose or your ears, they secrete some kind of a fluid that is not tears. Because I've taken like this, tears are salt. They're saline. And I've taken like this, and it's not bread, it's not salt, it's oil. Somehow demons secrete oil out your eyes, and it causes little kids to say, Mommy, my eyes itch. So, but this horror that the Christian community has about demons, and the fact that the King James Bible said demon possession, has made them abhor the very concept. They say, oh no, a Christian can't have a demon. But the truth of the matter is, the word possession is nowhere in the Bible. The translators in the King James Bible in 1611, their concept of a demon was a big, huge, ugly gargoyle monster. And so when they came across the word demonozamia or demonozitzo, which simply means demon or demonized, they thought, oh, it should be translated demon possession. But it shouldn't have. It should have been translated demons, or has a demon, or demonized. But that word possession has been the ugly cross that keeps Christians away, and they don't think a Christian can be demon possessed. Well, a Christian can't be demon possessed. Christ possesses us. He bought us with his own blood. He possesses us, but demons can certainly torment us. When people argue that fact with me and they say, oh, you can't, and I say, have you ever heard someone describe waking up in the middle of the night with hands around their throat, choking them, and they can't breathe, and they scream Jesus, and all of a sudden the hands disappear, or they wake up and they're being raped? And I've had women and men raped so bad they couldn't walk afterward. And so when they tell me a Christian can't have demons, I just say a man with an experience is never at the mercy of a man with a theory. So these guys, they have theories, but if you ever, like you, if they ever have one experience, it changes their mind about a Christian having a demon. And how many demons there is here. I had Dave's father. He said, "Oh, I don't think too many demons are in America. They're in third world countries. There are millions of them all around us. Just because we can't see them, they're there."
Right. So when you say 500 years ago, is that the Council of Nicaea?
No, it was when King James commissioned the writing of the King James Version Bible.
Okay.
And he assembled a group of scholars. There's a lot of different opinions, whether it was a good thing, bad thing, but the King James Version was the first English Bible that got into the hands of the common people, and they had translated the word demonizamia or demonizizo as demon possessed. And actually, the Greek language is so much richer than the English. We say, "I love my dog, I love my wife, I love my God, I love God." Do you feel the same way about God as you do your dog? Well, no, but I love them all three. So for the Greek language, there's eros, which is sexual intimacy. There's phileo, which is a reciprocal love. I love you because you love me, and you love me because I love you. And then there's agape, the kind of love that God has. He loves you whether you ever love him. So their language is richer, the same. In the Greek language, there's actually 5 words, Bret, meaning possession. The most common word that we use and refer to is the word echo, just like hearing an echo. But it's a Greek word and it means possession or ownership. There's 5 other words. I know there's karteko, and then the other 3, I don't remember. It doesn't matter. But those 5 words mean ownership or possession. If the original writers in the Greek language in the first century, if they had wanted to say demon possession, they would have said demonozamia echo, demonozamia karteko. They would have said that. They didn't say that, Bret. They said demonozamia or demonizizo, just 2 different forms of the word. But the translators of the English Bible in 1611, they tacked that on because they thought that was what the original writers had intended to say, but it wasn't. So because of that stigma of demon possession has followed us for 500 years. So if you talk to the average Christian and you talk about demon, they say, "I'm not demon possessed, Christ owns me." Well, no one's arguing that fact. We know that Christ owns you, Christ owns me. He bought us with his own blood. He purchased us. We're not talking about ownership. We're talking about being harassed, or you get a demon of anger in you and it causes you to lose your temper and throw things and maybe slap your wife or belt your husband. That's a demon of anger. And you have to get him out. I can say that because I had a demon of anger and I cast him out in 1979. And my wife would tell you, she's been to heaven now, but my wife would tell you that living with me from 1970, when I first got out of the Navy, to 1979 was like just next to being in hell. She walked on eggshells. She never knew when I was going to explode. I didn't hit her. I wasn't violent with her, but I'd explode and just kept her on. In 1979, 1977, I stormed out of a restaurant and she said, "I'll never, ever go with you into a public restaurant. You are not going to humiliate me and these 2 kids. She said, "You're a creep. You say you're a pastor." And right then, Bret, I started fasting and praying. I didn't know a Christian could have a demon back then either. So I started fasting and praying in 1977, and I'd fast for maybe 3 days, and then I'd explode and say, "To hell with this, it don't work. Fasting and praying don't work." And what I didn't realize, I was driving that demon to the surface. So I'm in my office downstairs in my home, and I got the hair on the back of my neck stood up, scared me. And Bret, I turned around and looked like this, and there was a being, a creature standing behind me, him maybe a foot taller than me, and it scared the bejeebies out of me. So I turned around and walked upstairs just to get rid of that feeling, but I never lost my temper again to this day. To this day, and that's been since 1979. That's been 45 years. And my wife, if she was still here, would tell me from 1979 until she went to be with the Lord in 2012, I never ever seen him get angry again. And that was because a demon didn't own me. It didn't possess me, but it caused me to lose my temper. It influenced and controlled me in certain situations. That's how demons work. They influence us, or they'll tempt us, or either, Bret, they'll torment us.
Okay.
Maybe torment us and cause us to go into a deep depression.
Right. Okay. Influence, I think, is the word that really nails
That's
it.
it.
Because see, the difference between possession and influence, and this has to do with the blood. I'm going to ask you about the blood in just a second. It's all about legal rights. So we've heard the term "as above, so below," and that applies in so many different ways. So if you have a law court here in on earth, you have rights. God gives us rights, the right to live and breathe and be happy and to travel and that kind of thing. And then nothing can encroach upon those rights unless you grant the authority to other people to do something to you, or by contract. You have a private contract that grants someone else the authority to usurp those rights. So Jesus, the way I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jesus gives us free will. And with that free will, we can undo what I look at as a legal deal that Jesus cut. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I see Jesus in the court of heaven saying to the demons, or whoever the beings that were here before, and I'll have you describe that situation too, is that what do you want to go away to make room for my humans that are going to take over the earth? I want to be fair here. I don't want to just cast you guys aside. What do you guys want? And what's the number one thing a demon wants is blood, right? Human blood. So Jesus gives his blood to them and says, okay, a deal's been cut. You guys leave my humans alone. And when my humans are being influenced by you, they're going to plead the blood as if they're in court to invoke that ancient contract or deal or legal proceeding. But by our own free will, we can go around that or undo that deal and grant those beings authority to affect us. Is that a generally a correct description?
Yeah, that's a pretty accurate description. If I could be a little bit more specific, though.
Please do. Yes, thank you.
John 3:16 says, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him shall not perish but have everlasting life." So when Christ died on the cross, he died for the whole human race, but everything that you get from God, you have to appropriate. So you and I had to appropriate what he did on the cross by asking him to forgive us of our sins and asking him to take our place. And when we ask that, then his blood covers all of the sins we've ever committed. The Word of God says he's, as far as the east is from the west, the Father will separate our transgressions from us. So when we pray to receive him, we appropriate salvation, Bret. We appropriate it. It's there for everyone, but there will be millions and millions of people that don't do their part. They don't ask for it. You and I had to ask God. You had to ask Christ to become our Savior. We have to ask, and so we have to appropriate everything else. So let's say I have a spirit of depression, and I had one. So I have a spirit of depression. There are those that say that when Christ hung on the cross and he said, "It's finished," he finished it for us. He did not finish it for us. He did, Bret, his part in dying for us and providing his blood to cover everyone who wants it. But we appropriated salvation by a choice, Bret. So now I have an anger of depression. And it didn't go away when I prayed to receive Christ. It didn't go away. Christ entered my spirit, but it didn't go away. So now I have to appropriate freedom from depression. So I have to go back to Christ and say, I don't want to be depressed. I don't like being depressed. I want to be effervescent and bubbly, and I want people to like me. And I don't want to be like, the Igor in the closet, in the basement, I want to change me, Lord. When we say that, then we start the process of him helping us. And in your case, you didn't want those bad things in your life, but didn't know how to get rid of them. And when you came to Glad Tidings, you realized, okay, here's how I get rid of this garbage. I just tell it, you get the hell out of my life. So we appropriate those things. Just like I can get sick, Bret, I have to ask Jesus to heal me, or I'd probably die of that sickness. But if I ask Jesus to heal me and he heals me, then I can go on living. Does that make sense to you? We have to appropriate. Even though his blood, even though he died for the whole world, we have to appropriate it. And all those people that say, when Jesus said it's finished, we don't have to do nothing. Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. I've had to fight strong demons and people who love Jesus just as much as me or you. But I had to fight strong demons that threw them on the ground, that bit them, that scratched big claws down their back, that raped them. And they loved Jesus as much as you or I. But they had a battle to go to get rid of those wicked things. And the legal rights that you talked about, many of those legal rights came from their ancestors. The legal rights that was in Sarah, the book that you just showed the crowd, those legal rights, those demons had legal rights in her before she was ever born because of the sins of their ancestors. And so there is legal rights that are in you and I's life that have given a demon the right to harass us, and however it does, whether it tempts us or whether it torments us. And those legal rights was given by a previous generation. When God gave Moses the law on Mount Sinai, he said, Moses, tell the people not to worship idols and not to bow down before any other gods, because I'm a jealous God and I will visit their sins to their children, to the third and fourth generation. So you and I, some of the bondages that we may have in our life, they may have came through, you talked about coming through the blood. They came through the blood. They came from our ancestors. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
And you of course you said it in a much more full and bigger definition than description than I did, of course. But you're essentially nail it on the head from what I understand. So when a law is broken down on earth, you have to go to court and ask for justice. So I think
Yes.
that's basically what you're saying. Jesus did the work on the cross, but because we, in our folly, literally as humans, not understanding the situation that we're in or where we're from, we open these doorways, or we grant the authority to the enemy without even knowing it. Talk a little bit
Yes.
about that and how pervasive that is. That, yeah.
Well, that's interesting what you just said. I want to elaborate on that. Let's say, Bret, that I wake up some morning and walk in my backyard and some sucker has pitched his tent in my backyard. And I say to him, hey, you can't live here. This is my property. I own it now. You get off my property. And he says, go to hell. I ain't going anywhere. And so you say, I'm going to get you off. And so you take him to court. You both go to court and the judge says, he's right. This is his property. You pack your tent and you go. So now I have a decision on a legal decision by the judge, and I walk outside on the court step. This sucker walks up to me and says, I don't care what he said. I'm stronger than you. I'm bigger than you. Try putting me off the property. And he may be twice your size. So you have a legal right to fight with the demon. You have to make sure the demon has no legal right. So when I pray for someone, before I even pray for them, Bret, I just say, let's deal with legal rights. And so I have them ask forgiveness for the sins of their ancestors and strip away any legal rights. There's another legal right. It's if you hold unforgiveness against someone. It's found in the 18th chapter of Matthew. And Jesus talks about the man who's forgiven by his master and goes out and refuses to forgive his fellow worker. So the master calls him back and says, "You wicked servant, I forgave you all that and you wouldn't forgive, so I'm going to turn you over to the tortures." So you and I, Bret, if we hold unforgiveness against someone, it gives legal rights for demons to torment you and
I. This is the facet that I really got, Jess, was the idea of legal rights. And because I studied law here in Chico at a pretty prominent law study group that had been attacked by the government, local government in many ways. One of our guys was in the New York Times twice telling the IRS what they can go do with themselves, and he's not paying any taxes. So he got attacked. I mean, there's all kinds of stories, right? So since you brought it up, I was going to save this for a little bit later, but I think it's appropriate now to talk about To Hell with Sarah. That book, Jess, I read hundreds of books, hundreds of magic books, hundreds of books about wizards or about witches or druids or Wiccas. Many indigenous cultures around the world I've studied. When I read your book, To Hell with Sarah, I was blown away on multiple levels. One of which was the history of the heathens. I'd like you to talk about that a little bit, but in terms of Sarah Heckler, and that's not her real name, right? It's not at least her real first name.
That's not her real name.
But Heckler is, right? Heckler, if I remember the book correctly, Heckler you trace back to one of those heathen tribes.
But even that, I disguised the name a little bit.
Okay.
I altered it a little bit, Bret.
Okay.
But can I regress just a little bit back?
Absolutely.
Okay. In 1997, we were just a fun-loving church. We loved going painting graffiti off of buildings and off of fences and picking up garbage through the city. We just tried to do what we could do. In 1997, the daughter of Anton LaVey came and asked us for help. We didn't know at the time she was the daughter of Anton LaVey, but she was. And she asked us for help. And so Pastor Dave and Cheryl invited her to come in and stay at their house. And it started a battle of the wheels from July of 1997 till October the 30th or 31st, when we went up to Anton's ranch, Nevada City, about 40 miles above us. It took us that 4 months to get his daughter to tell us where his ranch was. And he had threatened, he said, "I'm going to sacrifice my daughter, or I'm going to sacrifice you, preacher boy, or I'm going to sacrifice your youngest son, Joe. Someone is going to die Halloween night." And he said, it'll either be my daughter or one of you or your son. And so he had threatened us over and over again. So we drove up. She wouldn't tell us. She said, "I will die if I tell you where the ranch is with the witches' coven that I belong to, along with my father." It took us 4 months asking her to do that. And when she finally did, we drove up there, and there was 12 of us in a van. We drove up there. We was all sitting on the floor of the van. We drove up there. She said, "If you drive off the road, the demons will pick this van up and throw it on its top and kill everyone in it, please." So we parked right there. We got there. We held hands. We asked God, if Anton isn't going to repent, if he'll never come to know you, then we sever his silver cord and send him to judgment. And they found him a day or two later on the floor of his ranch house up there, dead. Now that was our introduction into Satanism and witchcraft. We were pretty oblivious to it before then. So that was in 97. Now in 1999, 2 years later, we're going to talk about the book To Hell with Sarah. 1999. It was Christmas. It was a few days before Christmas, and my wife and I was headed south 250 miles for Christmas vacation when I just walked in, and we have pigeonholes where each one of us gets our mail and everything at the church. And so I picked up all my mail and just sorted through it. That can wait. And I saw this letter with a return address of Possessor from Hell, and And it sort of shocked me. And so I just stuck it in my briefcase, went down to Visalia and spent a day or two with my family down there enjoying Christmas. And then I thought, oh, I forgot, I'm going to go read that letter. So I go out in a dark back spot in my brother's backyard, and I opened that letter. I thought, possessor, who would call themselves possessor from hell? And when I opened that, you read the letter that possessor from hell wrote me. And he said, she's mine, she's my daughter, I'll kill you, you and that effing shepherd king of yours, you watch your flock, I'll take care of mine. He said, but you get away from her. Well, anyway, it blew my mind. I thought, who? And I just thought a man wrote this. And so I got back, and I called I called the secretary before I got back, called pastor and said, Pastor, do we have anyone with this name? He said, no, not that I know, but I'll ask the secretary. So the secretary of the church, Carol, she called, she said, Jess, there's one woman here with that name. And so I said, okay, thank you. So now I get back to the church and I call that woman's husband. And he came into my office and I said, would you read this letter? And he read it and I said, do you think your wife could have wrote that? And he said, yeah. I said, really? He said, yeah, I think she could have. And I said, I got 7 more letters, 1 each week, until the 8th letter. That woman was at the mailbox and her neighbor called her and said hello, called out to her and said hello, and it brought her to. And what this demon possessor from hell was doing, Bret, was he was taking control of her mind while she was sitting at her computer. And he would write that letter, mail that letter, and post the office, bring her back, put her down in front of her computer, and release her mind, and she didn't know she had written them. So I got 7 more until the 8th one. She found out, so she called me and she said, do you have other letters? And I said, yeah. And she said, could I come in? I said, sure. So she came in and I said, I'd like that 8th letter. She gave it to me and I said, here's the other 7. She read all 7 of them and it cooked her mind. And that was what started the deliverance process of me helping her get free. It turned out that woman had been raised by a group. They don't call themselves Satanists. They don't call themselves Luciferians. They call themselves devil worshipers, but they also call themselves Germans and heathens. They went by those 3 names. Either you call them Germans, heathens, or devil worshipers. And she was the one that had been designated to be the next high priest. And she would be, the father had to have a baby by his sister and then marry the daughter, and she would become the high priest of the next generation. She was designated for that spot, so they started programming her from the time she was 3 months old. And when I met her, she was 34 years old, and she was getting ready to go back for the final ritual where she would become the bride of Satan, and then also the bride of the father, which was actually, she thought she's her uncle, but it was her father. But anyway, so that's when I found her, and we had to physically restrain her because they had her programmed where when all they had to do is just trigger something in her mind and she'd just get in the car like a zombie and drive back to Arkansas. So that's what started that whole ordeal, Bret, and that ordeal lasted from December when I read the first letter, probably December the 23rd, 24th. When I read the first letter until February 11th of 2002. That's how long, that was 26 months. That's how long that thing lasts. And I seen wires leave her body, Bret. The very first thing that I saw, and Bret, I want to tell you about this incident. The very first thing that I saw was my wife and I and her husband was praying for her, and all of a sudden a red star appears on her forehead. And I got closer to her and I looked at that And I said to the demon, well, what's your name? He said, my name's Star. And I said, really? And I said, so you're the one causing that star? He said, yeah. He said, watch this. And all of a sudden, two big scabs appeared on the side of her head, just scabs about as big around as a quarter, appeared on the side of her head. And we were looking at that. We were just flabbergasted. And then all of a sudden, this woman, this girl, she wiggles out of her seat onto the floor and she's taking her hand like this and she's clawing her stomach like this. And I said to her husband, I said, would you mind lifting her blouse so we can see what she's clawing at? And he said, sure. He lifted up her blouse about this far. Okay. And I saw something that blew my mind again. The star blew my mind. The sores on the side of her head, crusty sores, blew my mind. But this, I'm watching, the best way I can describe it would be like a flying saucer coming up out of the water. It's coming up, you sort of see it coming up out of the skin, and all of a sudden it's on top of the skin. And what it was, Bret, it was, I don't know, this is probably before your time, but they usually delivered glass bottles of milk in glass bottles. And you had a little, it was just a thick piece of paper, and you peeled it off. And that was the only thing keeping the milk in the bottle. You peeled it off. Well, we used to take them and play games with them, you know, when we was growing up. Well, that's what that looked like. It was about as big around as a 50-cent piece. And it laid on top of her stomach and it bubbled like boiled and bubbled. And I said to my wife, I said, do you see that? And she just goes, shh, she's fascinated watching this thing. And so the three of us are watching this thing. And in the meantime, this woman has sort of settled down. And so I just reached with my two fingers, just like this, and I just peeled it right off. And I held it up and looked at it, and it was sort of slimy, wet, you know. And I looked at it, and I laid it over on my desk. And then we started casting demons out of her. And she would always remain unconscious until all the demons had gone, and then she would wake up. She had regained, I should say, she had regained consciousness. But that was the most bizarre thing I've ever seen. I've seen some weird things, but that's the most bizarre thing I've ever seen is when that thing came right up out of her skin. But the first, these things came on the side of her forehead, but Bret, they were just crusty sores. We saw the star, then it disappeared, then two crusty sores. But by the end of the day, Bret, those crusty sores had separated just like this. The crust just started moving back and showed another one just like on her stomach. And you could just like this, we peeled it right off of her. And so many of those came out. Probably the first 10, 15, 20, I saved them. I was intrigued with them and I wanted to find out exactly what they were. And so I saved them, but there were so many, and they'd come out while she's sleeping, and she'd say, Jess, I found 3 of them when I woke up. They was on my sheet. But anyway, it was the weirdest thing, and that was, Bret, that was the very beginning of a 26-month ordeal where we've seen so many bizarre things. After those things started coming out, Bret, we were praying for her one day, and she goes just like this. She goes, ow. No, she turned her, and she goes, ow. And I said, what is it, Sarah? And she said, I don't know. It feels like a wire. And I looked, and Bret, on her arm from about right here, on her arm, to about right here. Yeah, I would say it was 6 inches long. It was red. You could see it underneath. It was red. You could see exactly how long the wire was because it was red all along. It was inflamed all along. And so she wanted to pull it out. And I said, no, Sarah, don't pull it out. And so that thing would come in, and it would come out a little ways, maybe a quarter of an inch, and it'd go back in. And finally, I pulled it out. And after that, I think total there was 86 wires came out of her.
Wow.
And they come out of her legs, out of her stomach, around her. A thin copper wire came from around her neck. And she pulled it out herself. And she said, Jess, when I pulled that thing out, it felt like I was cutting my head off. But so you had all of those. I later found out what that was. What they would do, Bret, is they would take flesh, someone else's flesh. They would soak it in formaldehyde and form those circles. They would lay it on, and through incantations, it would sink right underneath the skin. You say that can't happen? Well, it came out of the skin. So
no
it was just as easy. Yeah. So anyway, but it was a 26-month ordeal, and we dealt with a lot of different powerful demons. It was my first time I ever had an encounter with angels. I didn't see him, but we were praying for a powerful demon by the name of Richard, who she thought was her uncle, but it was her father. A powerful demon by the name of Richard, and he was so powerful. Me and another gal who was slender, this Oriental gal who was slender, we were trying to hold this woman down, and this woman was pretty strong, pretty muscular, pretty strong, sort of a stocky gal, and we were holding her down, and it was hot in my office, and it was so hot I was sweating from my face, I was sweating from my armpits, and I was having to reach across Sarah to help the gal on the other side to hold that shoulder down. And this demon was so strong, he was so powerful, the two of us could not hold her down. And so finally, I just thought that demon, first of all, it hit me in the chest, knocked me backwards. And when I lost consciousness probably for a second. And I came to, and he was trying to cram the woman that was working with me, cram her head underneath a desk that there wasn't enough room for her head to go under. He's scraping the side of her. Her face was slender, but scraping the side. And I jumped up and I grabbed this woman, this demon, by the feet and dragged it away from the desk. And then when we started trying to hold it down, it had fought us so hard, and it would relax a minute, we'd relax, and all of a sudden it would headbutt us. And so anyway, finally I just said, God, if you don't help us, we're going to release this demon, and we're going to try to get out of my office before it hurts one of us. And all of a sudden, Bret, this demon says, get him away from me and I'll go. And he started kicking like this with his feet, you know. And me and my helper, we're just looking and think there's no one there. And he kept saying, get that, I'll go, I'll leave. Just get him away. And then he settled down like this. And I'm just thinking, wow, there's an angel in the room with us. And then he relaxes and he starts laughing. And I thought, no, it's just a mind game he was playing with us. And so then I know it was God that spoke to me and said, no, you understand, angels will come, keep praying. And so I told this demon, I said, Richard, I understand how this works now. We just need to pray a little bit longer. We prayed probably for another 15 minutes, Bret, and all of a sudden that same thing happened. He said, get him away from me. I swear I'll leave her. I swear I'll leave her. I'll go back to Arkansas. You'll never see me again. I said, too late, demon. I don't cut no deals with you. He said, please just get him. Don't let him touch me. And talk about being jazzed, Bret, knowing there was an angel in the room with us. And he kept saying, no. And then the angel spoke to me, and the angel said, I want you to execute judgment on him and send him to hell. I don't ever want to have to fight him again. And I said, I can do that? And he said, yeah, haven't you ever read Psalms 149? And I said, probably. I've read the whole Bible. He said, read it again. I read it. It says, with the high praises of our God in our mouth and a two-edged sword in our hand, we execute judgment on God's enemies. He said, this evil, wicked thing is God's enemy. I want you to execute judgment. Then I'm going to take him to hell. So it was a real learning experience. And he showed up on a regular basis after that to help us, Bret.
Wow. That's absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
You know, I haven't seen stuff quite like that during a deliverance at the Church of Glad Tidings, but I've seen stuff that approach that.
Yeah.
What was that original implant that bubbled up out of her stomach? I mean, this is like, I feel like I'm watching the Amityville Horror right now, or listening to you, or the Exorcist or something, right? The movie
Yeah.
with Linda Blair. When that bubbled up, what was that made of? Was it paper, like you're describing the top of the bottle, the milk bottle?
We found out later on it was dried skin.
Okay.
If they wanted, Brett, a demon can't get into you and I unless a gate is opened. Our will is the gatekeeper of the soul. Unless we don't have to tell him he can come in. We can just give in to, say, lust, and the spirit of lust can come in because we have opened a door in our life. Well, they didn't want to have to deal with the human will, so it's like they put helicopter landing pads. Any place where something that belonged to them was in her body became a portal or an opening for them to get in. So they didn't have to go through Sarah's human will. They didn't have to ask Sarah, can we come in? And her human will say, yes, you can, or no, you can't. They bypassed the human will. So they had those all through her body, Brett. And those things were portals or entry points, entryways, gateways for them to go into her. So what they would do is they would take someone else's flesh and they would form it into those little patties, and they'd use formaldehyde. They ground up that flesh, used formaldehyde, and they turned it into a patty, and it dried. They would lay it right on their forehead. They would lay it right on their arm, do incantations, and bam, it was inside the skin.
It would just like melt into the skin, or
it would disappear into the skin.
Wow. That is
later when this became a familiar thing, then I asked Sarah, I said, Sarah, do you know how these got? Yeah, she said, yes, some of them, they just laid them there, and they did rituals, incantations, and they just commanded it, and then it went in my skin. Instead, it just disappeared in my skin. Well, I certainly couldn't argue with her because I was watching them come out. So if they could come out of her skin without no human assistance, they didn't have to do an incision. We didn't do any of that. So all those wires came out of her body. Now there's other things that came out of her body too. Right here inside her eyebrows, a green and a blue cheap rhinestone. I mean, just the cheapest piece of rhinestone glass. It came out of her eyebrows, and it just came out, crusted over. You just peeled it right off. It was probably about as big as the head of a eraser, a pencil eraser, if people know what size that is. And then there was two right above her breast, right at the top of her breast. Two of them just came out, and it's sort of crusty and brown around of it, and you just peel it right off, and then it healed right up. And then a larger one, came out the side of her leg. Then two other things that came out of her body, Brett, that blew me away is, you know how you'll have an electrical box and contracting, and you're going to mount an electrical box on the wall, and you're going to bring conduit from the bottom or maybe from the top or from either side, and it has what's called knockouts. When I was a little boy, I used to think they were money, and I used to play with them. I'd see them on construction sites. Well, one of those came out right there at the base of her skull. It just crusted over, and you could peel it right off, and then it healed up. She healed real fast. And one of them right at her tailbone, she just brought it in, showed it to me, and said, this came out of my tailbone this morning. It's the sore, it's a little sore, but it's healing up. So those things came out. But the other thing that I want to tell you about, Bret, is the most incredible thing I've ever heard. Sure. Is throughout that ordeal, the demons would wake her up at night, and they would take her own hand, and she would draw pentagrams with a razor blade. Draw pentagrams and maybe lines out, draw pentagrams here, draw pentagrams right here, and some just demonic, satanic symbols all over all over her face, and she would bleed. She would bleed, but she'd heal up real quick. So, but they did that while she was sleeping. So one night, my wife and I, it's probably 7:30, 8 o'clock, time for school. And my wife and I hear a knock on the door, and both of us, for some reason, went to the front door. And here's Sarah standing there, and she's in a white t-shirt. And you can see all of the symbols bleeding through her white t-shirt.
Wow.
And she's crying. And she said, Jess, she said, they do this to me at night when I'm asleep, but this is the first time when I let my little boy off for kindergarten. They took over, and they did this using my own hands. And she said, I'm frightened now because they can do it during the day. It's so humiliating. She said, could I take a shower? And so Peggy and I said, sure. And so she went in and she took a shower, and Peggy gave her a blouse to put on. She came back out and there was no blood. There was no blood on her face, no blood on her arms. And I looked at her and I said, Carol or Sarah, I said, what's going on? And she said, oh, I heal very quickly. And I said, you heal very quickly? That's quicker than quick. She said, well, I took blood baths growing up. And I said, well, what has that got to do with you at 34 years old? She said, don't you know? I said, no. She said, if you take blood baths, it keeps you looking younger and you heal fast. And I said, you just walked in 5 minutes ago and you were bleeding all over your arms and your chest and your face. Now I can't see a single trace of a cut. And my wife was saying the same thing. She said, this is unreal. And she said, no, I just took blood baths. And I said, how do you take a blood bath, Sarah? And she said, I've spent the whole day with my grandmother killing chickens, dogs, cats, hogs, and emptying it in 55-gallon barrels. And I said, you got enough? And she said, yeah, they put me in a 55-gallon barrel and they gave me blood baths. I just thought, wow, this is wild. But I saw the evidence, Brett. I saw her walk into my house bleeding, and I saw her take a 5-minute shower, walk out, and you couldn't see a single cut on her body. It was really a phenomenal thing. Since that time, I've had a couple of different Satanists tell me that I take blood baths, and so I stay young looking and I heal quickly.
Yeah, it's just incredible. You know, and it's so appropriate for today for people to understand that this stuff is real, Jess, because this is what's being alleged about the quote unquote cabal that's that are Luciferian satanic that supposedly are rule through our country and around other governments around the world through secret societies, and that this kind of a demonic or Luciferian satanic fallen angels, whatever you want to call them, is actually the energy that's behind this.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So let's. I remember, you know, I studied with the Druid priestess teacher. We won't mention her name, but she showed me the ins and outs of magic, right? Witchcraft. She was a self-proclaimed white witch, and you can demarcate between black and white witches here in just a second. And what we would do is we would, on the 8 holidays of the year, it's called the 8-spoked wheel, we would do certain rituals that were patronizing to certain gods and goddesses, the god and his consort, that represented that holiday, right? And so I think the big reason why we're doing this interview now for the eTalk TV Live Haunted Marathon as a supposed tribute to Halloween is because Samhain was one of those holidays on the 8-spoked wheel. Tell us about Samhain, the significance of Samhain to the Luciferians or to the heathens, and what Halloween really means.
Well, Bret, as I got really into this, and and Sarah started sharing with me secrets first of all, the first time she shared secrets, all of a sudden it triggered a demon in her, and all of a sudden she was going to go back to her family in Arkansas, and we physically constrained her from doing that. But we found out that she had been programmed. One of the programs was a trigger. It's called the return program. If anyone who's been programmed by Satanists, if they start to reveal any secrets, they trigger a return program, and a demon, a powerful demon, takes over their mind, and then they go back to the family, or they go back to the coven they're from. So when she first started revealing secrets, that return program was triggered. But the angel that appeared later on, he started talked to me pretty frequently. And we deprogrammed her, and that triggering program ceased to work, so she could share a lot with me. And the angel also shared a lot with me. But she shared that Satanists have a calendar of holidays. And there's actually 12 holidays. There's more than 12, because sometimes there's 2 holidays in 1 month. But there are holidays every month of the year. But the October 31st, actually, there's a thing called the High Holy Day, and it runs from October the 28th to November the 4th. And the very, very pinnacle of that is they call it Hallowed Eve. They call it Hallowed Eve. They don't call it Halloween. They call it Hallowed Eve. And on that, there's always a blood sacrifice. Now, they'll sacrifice an animal if they have to, but they prefer doing a human sacrifice. Now, I remember back in 1998, when Anton LaVey's daughter came to us, one of the things she came to me and she said, Jess, your son is a deputy over in Yuba County, Marysville. And she said, but I want you to know, one of the members of our coven is a deputy sheriff that works right along with your son. So you tell your son, watch his back and don't trust anyone. So I asked her, I said, why should I do that? Tell me whose his name is. She said, I can't do that. She said, if I did that, I would suffer severe repercussions. And I said, yeah, you're telling me my son's in danger, but you won't tell me the one who could shoot him in the back? And she said, well, he won't do that, but if he gets a chance, he'll do something to him. But she said, that deputy sheriff over in Marysville is the one that always supplies us with the human victim on, she called it Halloween, but the Satanist calls it Hallowed Eve. I think it's Hallowed Eve. But anyway, she said, and I said, how does he do that? And she said, he will pick up a hitchhiker, like he's going to arrest him, take him to jail. If it's a young girl, it just brings her up to the ranch, and we keep her in confinement till the night of Halloween. And then she's a human sacrifice. And that blew my mind, because I knew the evil of Halloween 40, 50 years ago. I thought something's wrong with this. And I wouldn't let my kids become involved in Halloween. But I didn't know how evil it was until we met Anton LaVey's daughter. And so when she told me that, I said, please tell me so I can tell him just to be careful of this. She said, I can't do that. She said, the best you're going to get out of me is you tell him not to trust anyone, any man on that deputy sheriff's force over there, because one of them is a member of our coven. I thought, wow, that blows me away. And he was the one that would usually get them their victim. So but there's there's holidays every month of the year, and a satanic holiday. And you mentioned different ways. The Illuminati is Satanism, but it's in the political realm.
Right.
This is what the angel told me. He said the Illuminati operate strictly in the political realm. He said Luciferians operate strictly in the higher order of Lucifer as the light bearer, the coming God. And he said devil worshippers, they're the ones oftentimes like the Germans or the heathens. But he said there's the Illuminati, there's the Freemasons who are Luciferians, and then there's devil worshippers.
Okay, interesting.
Did I answer your question, or did I go down a rabbit trail?
Well, so what is a little bit of a rabbit trail, but interesting nonetheless. Let me tell you. So what is this? So people are running around. I grew up, with Halloween. You put on a costume. I used to carry a paper bag until I saw some of the older kids using a pillowcase, and then I thought, well, I can get like 5 times as much candy in a pillowcase. So I grabbed the pillow, right? So I put the pillowcase, and I'd run around, and me and my buddies would go, and we'd get as much candy as we can, and then we'd be involved in some kind of mischief. Maybe we'd sneak into our junior high or our high school or something and run around, and it was fairly innocent, it wasn't like we were committing crimes or something. But that's how I grew up treating Halloween, that it's just a scary, spooky little thing that's just once a year, and it's no big deal. You put a pumpkin on your porch, maybe throw some cobwebs, a spider, a couple ghosts out front, and you give candy to kids. But it's much more than that, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It's the night. It's the holy day. It's when every Satanist, many witches, you mentioned a white witch, the difference. Yeah. I once talked to a witch and I said, "You're a witch?" She said, "Yeah, but I'm a white witch." And I said, "So tell me what's the difference between a white witch and a black witch?" She said, "Well, I would never try to hurt anyone." And I said, "Really?" I said, "So if you're not trying to hurt anyone, how do you use witchcraft?" And she said, "Well," she said, if my girlfriend wanted some guy to fall in love with her, I guarantee I could make him do that." And I said, "Through what?" She said, "Through all kinds of things, through incantations, through rituals, through releasing." She didn't say demons, through releasing spirits to entice him to fall in love with her. So anyway, now I've forgotten the questions.
Well, what is the significance of Halloween?
Okay.
And you were heading that direction. So I'm glad you made that point about the white and black.
It's a worship of Satan. And you mentioned Sam Hain. Sam Hain came in through the Celts, through the Druids, but Sam Hain was another name for Satan. Just another name for Satan. When they worship Sam Hain, I don't know if you're familiar with some of the worship, some of the practices that the Druids did,
Oh, yeah.
But, that old thing, bobbing for apples. They used to take their victims, and they had to bob for apples in boiling oil. It burned their faces off, and they went into town. Sometimes they made it into town, sometimes they didn't. But that was just one of the rituals during Halloween of the Druids, was to have the victims bob for apples in boiling oil. And it was, but I'm sure that there was a lot of sacrifice as well.
Yeah,
but Sam Hain was, he evolved in the Celtic religion, but he was just another name for Satan.
Yeah, so there's the Burning Man tradition too. There's several Druid or Wiccan rituals, and Burning Man was one of them, where they would build a giant effigy of a human with wood or straw, and then load it full of people and light it on fire.
They loaded it full of people. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, but also too, so just to buttress what you're saying, in my own experience with my Druid priestess teacher, we were on this particular day, we're patronizing Lu, and I forget who his consort is, and they're the patron god and goddess of the holiday Lughnasadh, which is in the summer. And so after we did a little ritual, we would kind of ruminate on the qualities or characteristics of the god and goddess. And one of the characteristics of Lu was that he was the god of the setting sun, and he's often pictured on a winged horse riding into the setting sun. And so I thought that was kind of curious to be a trait of somebody who just rides into the setting sun. And so I thought, oh, is Lu the god of death? Because it, setting sun is like the end, the time's over. And my druid priestess teacher tilted her head sideways and looked at me, didn't say a word, like, what do you think, you dumbass? Right? Like, I had to come to that conclusion myself. She wasn't going to say it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I used to get that look when I was a kid, or maybe a boss on a construction site when I didn't understand what he was saying, right?
Yeah.
So it was obvious, and I had to figure it out. So I go, oh, okay, so Lu is the god of death, so then is Lu Lucifer? And
Yes.
she tilted her head sideways again and gave me that same look, like, what do you think, dumbass? And I go, oh, great. This is what I'm doing. And so that was the start of me breaking away from my teacher at that point. So you're spot on when you say Samhain's just another name for Lucifer. I'll bet if you traced all those names in the 8-spoked wheel of the Druid holidays, that you could trace all those names back to, if not Lucifer, some dark angel or something. So
exactly.
yeah.
Okay, all of those,
Right.
when Lucifer rebelled, he promised all of the ones that rebelled with him positions of honor, fame, and so they're all wanting to be worshipped. And so all of those ancient gods, they were worshiping one of the fallen princes that fell with Lucifer.
Very, very
All of
fascinating.
those, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so give us a quick picture here, Jess. I know there's different ranks of angels and different ranks of demons, but just give us a broad stroke here. What is the difference between a fallen angel and a demon? Where are the fallen angels from, and where are the demons from?
Well, Brett, that's pretty controversial thing among Christians. But I wrote a little article that they can download off my website if they want a more detailed thing of what I'm going to say now. But there are 3 theories about where demons came from. One theory is that they're the fallen angels. But there's certain things that beg to disagree with that. Now, one of them is Jesus' statement in Matthew 12:43 when he says this. He says, when an evil spirit goes out of a man, he wanders in lonely places looking for rest, and finding none, he says, I'll go back to the house that I came from. And returning, he finds it cleaned and swept and empty. So he goes and gets 7 other spirits, more wicked than himself, and they all go live there. And the last state of the man is worse than the first. So one of that you could study that passage of scripture for weeks, months. But one of the things that's very clear is that a demon, when he's cast out of a person, he feels disembodied, he feels lonely. Now that begs the question, Bret, why would a fallen angel who lived originally in heaven, who now lives up in the second heaven, why would he be lonely when he's cast out of a person? Why not go back to where he was in second heaven? So now, even though he's inhabiting a person, he gets kicked out, just go back to second heaven. Why would he wander in lonely places? There's no reason for one of the fallen angels who fell with Satan to wander in lonely places, because he never had a physical body to begin with. So that's one of the things. Another thing is when Jesus was casting some demons out of a man, they pleaded with Jesus to let him go into some pigs. They wanted a body, Bret, so bad they were willing to go into the body of an animal, because they feel they are disembodied when they're not in a human body. Because so that, and then the third thing is when the demons Jesus cast out some demons once, and they pleaded with him not to force them to leave the region that they were in. And you think, why do you care? You were a fallen angel. You can go back to second heaven. You don't have to live here on earth, but they do. Now, that's the three reasons that I lay out in that when I'm defining what a demon is. So the first, the people that say that demons are fallen angels, those three reasons that I just gave would challenge that. Okay, the second theory is that the sixth chapter of Genesis, it says the sons of God looked on the daughters of women and saw that they were very beautiful. So they took wives. Now that's all it says. And then it says, and then afterward they did it again. Now we know that the flood took place, and but there are a group of scholars that say that the fallen angels that had sex with human women, and from those human women, they had offspring that were giants with 5 fingers and 5 toes. That those, after those offspring died, they're now the demons. But Bret, there's billions of demons. There's billions of demons. And when those angels fell, you don't find this. You don't find this in Genesis, in the Bible. But the book of Enoch, and Enoch was a pretty credible witness. In the book of Enoch, he says that those angels that fell, they were one tribe of angels, and they were called the Watchers. And they had been given human flesh because God assigned them to watch over mankind and to reveal knowledge when God wanted them to. Now, these 200 angels under the head angel, whose name was Semyaze, they made a pact. Semyaze was afraid some of them would back out, so he made them all swear that they wouldn't back out. So those 200 angels took human wives, and they had offspring. But you know, they were there, Bret, less than 1,000 years on the earth, and that 1,000 years, they wouldn't have had enough offspring to make up the millions, maybe billions of demons. So, and besides, they were wiped out pretty quickly. God wiped the first ones out. He wiped the first ones out within less than 500 years. The ones that sinned afterward and did it again, and we don't know how many was there. But the first group, Enoch says there was 200 under Semyaze. The second group, we don't know. All it says is that it had happened again, and more angels, more of the watcher angels fell. But by the time of Joshua, which is only 800 years later, by the time of Joshua, when Joshua came into the land, he killed most of the giants. There was only a few at the time of David, which is about 600 years after Joshua, there was only Goliath and 4 of his brothers and cousins left of all the giants. So there wasn't that many giants, Bret, on the earth, ever on the earth. There wasn't, certainly not enough for the millions of angels that plague people. I've cast 5,000 demons out of one person. So the third theory, first theory, they're fallen angels. The second theory, they're the disembodied spirits of the half humans and half angels, resulting from the fallen angels, the watchers having sex with human women and having babies. The third theory answers a lot of questions for me, Bret. In the book of Genesis, Genesis 1:1, it says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and earth. And Genesis 1:2 says, and the earth was in the state of complete chaos. And you think, what? Is that what God created? Well, all Bible scholars, I think, agreed, no, that's not what God created. So something happened, Bret, between Genesis 1:1 and 1:2. And it's proven by the fact that in Genesis 2, it says, and the earth was in complete chaos, and there was darkness on the face of the deep indicating water. Okay? Now, you can go, you think, where's the, is there any place in the Word of God where you can answer that? And you can find it in Jeremiah chapter 4 and verse 23. And Jeremiah is talking about the destruction of Israel. Now, there is a term in among Bible scholars, and it's called prophetic springboard. It means that the person is talking about a local situation, and then there's a springboard into the worldwide. So Jeremiah is talking about the destruction of Israel, and then all of a sudden he's talking about the destruction of the world. And this is what he says: I looked around and there was no man left. I looked and all the birds had fled from the heaven. I looked and all of the hills and the mountains were falling. And he said, I looked and all the cities were destroyed. And then he says, God speaking, God says, for this reason the earth will be black. And he said, for this reason, it'll be black and uninhabited. He said, but I'm not finished here. Now, so if you insert Jeremiah 4 and 23, Bret, in between Genesis 1 and 1 and 1 and 2, you see exactly what happened. God, the beautiful world that God created, when it was populated by a group of humanoids before Adam. We call it the pre-Adamic race, okay? The pre-Adamic race. So it's occupied by the pre-Adamic race, and Satan ruled over them. He had a throne. He ruled over them. When Satan rebelled, they rebelled with him, and God destroyed the earth. He destroyed the earth. He flooded it with dark water, and we have no idea how long that lasted. But it's between Genesis 1 and 1 and 1 and 2. And they weren't made in the image of God, but they were humans. The human race that was there at that time, that was destroyed with the fall of Lucifer and the destruction of the earth, they are now the demons. That is what I believe, Bret. Now, I've shared with you three different theories. The one that I believe, Bret, is that the pre-Adamic, all the souls of the pre-Adamic race, do you realize that they've dug thousands of foot deep and found batteries and dolls thousands of foot deep? It wasn't since the time of Adam. You can go on the top of the Andes and you can see where there was planes, it was airstrips where aircraft landed. I believe that they were more advanced than we are today.
Right. And Michael Cremo did some wonderful work with the Forbidden Archaeology book. And one of the many examples that he cites is they found a woman figurine, like a mother goddess, that they dated over 1 million years old.
Yeah.
So there's a lot about our history that we don't know about. The giants, the Nephilim, I think they're referred to in the Bible,
yes.
and the Rephaim, or their offspring, so to speak. There's various passages in the Bible that talk about them. Some of them apparently have gone underground because there's reports of sightings of giants in various places around the world. There's old footage, a Japanese parade is happening, and this giant guy's just walking around in the parade. There's also the legend of the Kandahar giant, where our military engaged with the giant coming out of a cave. I think it's in Turkey or Turkestan, one of those. Anyway, there's so much we don't know about our history. But we're about a half hour left, a little over a half hour left with this, Jess. Fascinating talk. I've heard you talk about in your lectures two things that fascinated me. One, that certain rock stars like Jimi Hendrix or Janis Joplin actually knew Anton LaVey, and that it was alleged that they had done rituals with Anton LaVey. And like I've never seen that before anywhere, but but to say that they did that would be believable because they rose to stardom super quick and then died, right? And so it implies to me that they had a deal with the devil, so to speak. There was a contract there. The Beach Boys, Jim Morrison, maybe. And there's also the story of Gene Roddenberry, where he got the idea from the Galactic Federation. So let's talk about the Anton LaVey's relationship with the rock stars, if you can. Where did you find out that information? And then let's shift to Gene Roddenberry.
Well, Bret, I read an account, and it was probably 30 years ago, and I apologize, but I can't remember where I read that. But it was a personal testimony of a man who was an ex-Satanist, and he said that he was in Anton LaVey's church the night that Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin, and I believe there was a third person. I think it may have been Jane Mansfield, but I'm not sure about that. But anyway, the three of them made a covenant with Satan. If they could be the best for 10 years, that they would sell their soul. And Janis Joplin and Jimi Hendrix died within 3 months of each other. So, Bret, that's all I can tell you. Okay. It was a personal testimony, but it's been so long ago that I forgot the man's name. Okay. But he said, he swore I was there. I saw the whole thing. So that's all I know about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can see that in their careers, right? Jimi Hendrix was arguably the best guitarist at the time, maybe of all time.
Yes.
Janis Joplin
he was voted the year before. He was voted best guitarist in the world.
Okay. Well, so
Janis Joplin was voted best female vocalist.
Well, and I think you see that today. There's videos on YouTube you can find and elsewhere of, say, an artist like Jay-Z, the rapper, whose videos are, and Beyonce, whose videos are satanic. You can see the satanic symbolism in there. There's pictures of him throwing certain signs that indicate that he may be affiliated with that. Katy Perry is another one. There's even a video of Bob Dylan saying that he has, he's working for the big guys and his job's not done yet, right? But he's not referring to Jesus. He's referring to somebody else. So that's not too far-fetched. So it's too bad you can't remember exactly where you heard that from, but at the same time, you can see signs of that with other artists today as well. So let's shift gears to Gene Roddenberry, because there's a big push now in the UFO community about the Galactic Federation and what that means. What is your information about Gene Roddenberry, and where did he get that information about Star Trek being a part of a Galactic Federation?
Bret, I only know in a general sense, like everyone else.
Okay.
About people talking, but as far as any documentation, any proof, anything like that, I don't have that access to that.
Okay.
Sorry, I can't help you there, bro.
No, that's okay. I appreciate your honesty.
Look, I just cast demons out of people.
Okay. Well, you're a little more than that. You're very knowledgeable. So I wanted to ask you about that, but that's okay. All right. So let's shift gears a little bit. You do deliverances around the world, right? You have done deliverances around the world.
Yes.
What's the difference between how, let's say, Asian countries, for example, how they treat deliverance as opposed to Americans? What's the difference?
They see in America, you have to persuade someone they have a demon. In Asia, you don't have to. I spent 16 years in Cambodia and cast demons out of hundreds, maybe thousands of Cambodians. You don't have to convince them. They believe in demons. They're just terrified of them. And in all the Asian community, it's sort of hilarious that, Singapore is voted the safest, most peaceful city in the world. And I was in Singapore, and I was in this church, and I was speaking. I don't want to tell you the pastor's name, but he's a great pastor, got a real solid church. And I was in this church, and this most peaceful country in the world. Let me regress a little bit. in Singapore and in Malaysia, if you're Malay and you convert to Christianity, it can cost you your life.
Wow.
No Malays. It's not legal for a Malay to convert to Christianity. But the 85% of the population of Malaysia and of Singapore, 85% is Malay and 15% is Chinese. Now, if you're Chinese, the government don't give a rip about you. They help if you're a Malay and you need to buy a house, they'll help you buy a house. They have a lot of money there. But if you're Chinese, you just slug it out on your own, you know. So that the church that you go to in Malaysia, went to one in Kuala Lumpur and one in Singapore, and those churches will be 100% Chinese. So now I'm in this church in Singapore, Bret. It's 100% Chinese in the most peaceful city in the world, and I started casting out demons, and I think every single one of those boys, you know, the Chinese that I've met are a lot taller than the other Orientals, and they're pretty good shape, you know. And these Chinese, they wanted to fight. When the demon came up, they all wanted to fight. And so one of them would come up out of his chair swinging, and I had this guy with me, big husky guy by the name of Randy Law, and I'd just snap my finger and say, Randy, take care of that. And Randy would go, you, and you. Hold him down. And all of his buds around him that hadn't went demonic yet is now holding him down until they get the demons, and maybe they let him up, and all of a sudden one of those that was holding him down, all of a sudden they go demonic and they start swinging and they want to fight. And I'm sitting up there and Randy's looking at me like, a little help. I said, I got to stay on the mic. And you do. When you're doing a corporate deliverance, if you don't stay on the mic and keep commanding, everything just shuts down. But anyway, I found it humorous, Bret, that in Singapore, it was a wild bunch. I mean, it went on for 2 or 3 hours, and as soon as you get one, the demon's out of one. There was one young guy, and I went over and walked over to him, and he's avowed homosexual. But he wanted to serve God, and he's lying on his back, and I just went like this, and he spit. I mean, he spit so hard lying on his back that it hit me right here. I know demon's probably trying to hit me in the eye or the mouth, you know, to give me AIDS or something, but it hit me right here. And I just backed up and took a Kleenex and wiped it off, and we got the demons out of him. But you asked me, I didn't mean to go sideways on you. You asked me about in the Orient. Every place I've been in the Orient, I spent most of my time in Cambodia, but I have been in other nations as well, in Korea, you know, China. But most of my time is in Cambodia, and the demons. They're terrified of demons. And the church that I worked with in Poipet, Canada, I brought them to a place where they lost their fear of demons. They weren't afraid of demons anymore. They'd take on demons whether I was there or not. And the huge church that I visited for 6 or 8 years in Phnom Penh, the same thing. I remember one time I went there with a team of 15 people. And after I finished speaking, then I called for the team, and then we pray for people. And I said, hey, could we have the team come forward? And I had 15 people with me that I went over, and there's about 25 Cambodians came up, and I thought, oh, this is cool. They came up, and then we had a line of 35 people up there, but the church, was 1,000 people, So anyway, we had people up there, and afterward, I was having lunch with one of the pastors, and I said, Mara, it really blessed me that when I said, could the team come up, that you fielded a stronger team than we did from the States. He said, it almost made me cry, Bret. He said, well, isn't that what you taught us to do? Well, I got a big lump in my throat. And I said, well, thank you, Mara. The Asians are much more open. They know about demons. They believe demons. They're terrified of demons until you teach them. You don't have to be afraid. And then they are ferocious fighters against demons.
So you're painting a picture for us here that demons are far more pervasive than most people agree or would admit, or that even know, that even think to know that that's true, or that they're not even real, and that other cultures in the world acknowledge that reality in a way that's above and beyond here in America. It gives me the impression, since you can see Illuminist or Freemasonic symbols, let's say on George Washington's early pictures and drawings of him, he was a Freemason. Um, that this country is influenced, if not totally run by Illuminists and Freemasons, and that while there's a lot of good people in Freemasonry, I got to say that because I've had family members or friends that have family members in it, and they're great people, right? They don't really understand what they're involved with. But I would say or guess that it's by design that Americans don't know about demons or magic, so that those powers can stay in power. How do you feel about that?
Exactly, exactly. Satan will always prefer to work his evil, his wickedness in people's lives without their even any knowledge. I remember 30, 40 years ago, Flip Wilson started
Sure.
saying the devil made me do it and made a big joke out of it. And everyone
Right.
got a good, oh, yeah, yeah, and then slapped their knee. They got a good joke out of it. And Flip didn't understand how accurate he was.
Right. Okay. So there's a lot of misconceptions. I know I had a lot of misconceptions about Christianity, because the industry of Christianity and religion really turns a lot of people off, right? If there's, besides that, let's say, what is the most misconceived facet of Christianity that would help to people, the masses, to understand more the reality of their situation, let's say?
Well, the pastor that I work with, Dave Bryan, he calls it the Great American Religious Enterprise,
Right.
and it's driven by money, it's driven by pride, and it has given an image of Christ that is so inaccurate. Christ was humble, said he never owned anything except the clothes on his back, and he lived his life, Bret, trying to help, trying to heal, but uh, the church of today is enamored with itself. It's on a quest to be richer than the world. And it gives off an image to the world of such a phony image of Christ, nothing like Christ. I don't even think Christ would be welcome in the churches. And if
Wow.
you have a church like ours, if you have a church like ours, where we allow the Holy Spirit free reign to do what he wants there, in most churches, they treat the Holy Spirit like the retarded uncle that you put in a back room and hide until the company leaves because you're ashamed of him. And so there's no power. Charles Kraft here 20 years ago wrote a book, America, uh, America without power, something like that. And he was so accurate. He was so accurate because the church has no power. I mean, if someone in most churches, if someone is having problems, the pastor don't say, let me cast some demons of depression out of you. Or they say, I was diagnosed schizophrenic. It's nothing but a pack of demons, Bret. So they'll send them to a psychiatrist. The divorce rate in the church is not much different than the divorce rate in the world. Uh, the living together among Christians is not a whole lot different. And so Christianity is so far. I mean, I talk to so many people that says I love Jesus, but I hate the church. I can't hardly blame them,
Right.
Brad. I can't hardly blame them.
Right.
Anyway,
Well, from that, I would say that the biggest misconception is the reality of demons. Because once people realize that demons are a real thing and how they can knowingly or unknowingly open these doorways and grant authority to the demons to influence them, I know that's true for me. That really awakened me to the reality of the scenario that's painted by the Bible.
Yes.
When you see the power that the name Jesus carries in a deliverance, that to me was another real huge eye opener. So so I tend to look past what I used to think were hypocrisies or the brutality, let's say, of the Old Testament. A lot of people, detractors, will question that and say, well, you know, the Holocaust, they say, another example. Well, how could there be a God if the God's going to allow that to happen? That's a common knock on Christianity. But when you start to learn about the legal rights and how that works, the deal Jesus cut with the blood, and how we can actually set that aside by our own free will, that really opened up my eyes and began to. And then what I saw at the deliverance, I may not have come this far without that experience. And so that's a big reason why I wanted to have you on today, because people need to seek out that own. It's all like asking, like appropriating, like you're saying, you're asking for Jesus for help. Well, I think people need to ask to have these experiences, to be shown what the truth is. And go ahead.
Well, you know, bro, when we got into this in 1997, you could not find a book on demons. I go to a Christian bookstore and the woman said, I'll order that book for you, but I wouldn't have that on my shelves. I don't believe it. Now it's it's come so far, Bret, that a big black guy from, I think, Detroit, his name's Apostle John Eckhart. His books are in Winco, have their own stand, you know, and all kind of books about demons. So we've come a long way. So there is hope. Bret, there is hope. More and more people, their eyes are being opened to about demons. Like I said, the church that I work with, his name is Vieric Che, and up in Poipet. And when he first came there, and I went to his church and taught him about demons, all the other pastors in Poipet said there was no demons in Poipet until you came here. Now, 10 years later, he's the apostle over the whole work there, and they all come to him for advice. So it's spreading, Bret. There's more awareness of the work, the evil, insidious work that demons do in our lives. There is hope because more and more and more people are learning the truth. So we just keep believing and keep trying to spread the news.
Okay, so Puapet, is that Washington State?
Pardon?
What was the city that you named? Puapet? How do you pronounce that?
Oh, Poipet's in Cambodia.
Oh, okay, Cambodia. Just wanted to make, because I know you came from Washington, but that's Aberdeen, and I'm sure you've delivered.
Yes,
okay,
that's Aberdeen.
Okay, so it's spreading around in large part by books like what you see behind me here, To Hell with Sarah. You're writing a new book, To Hell with Demons. Is that the right title?
Yes.
And just give us a brief summary of that book.
Well, it's my experiences, you know. I mean, I'm getting older. I'm 74 years old. I'm getting older, and I am attempting to pass on my knowledge to a younger generation. God's been good to me, Bret. He's allowed me to have experiences that some people haven't had. And because of those experiences, I've had insight into how the demonic realm works. And so it will be my experiences, different demons that I have dealt with. And I hope that it'll just give insight to people who are dealing with demons. And they can learn what demons can do and what demons can't do. Because I've had demons, when I was writing that book, To Hell with Sarah, four high priests over that thing told me they was going to kill me. One actually came clear to my office, was in my office at one time. They all said they was going to kill me. They all died. They all died during that 2-year period of time. So demons will threaten you. Demons terrify people by saying, I'm going to kill you. If they could kill you, they would have already done it. The only way they can kill you is if you wander deep into sin and witchcraft and give over legal rights. Otherwise, they'll tell you they can kill you, what they can't. So I try to teach people what they can do and what they can't do through my experiences, Brett.
Okay. And then to buttress that, you have a website. Tell us, I love the
Yes,
name of your website. Tell us the name of your website.
it's In Your Face Demon.
.com, right?
Yes, inyourfacedemon.com. Yeah, and if you want a little thorough look into what I shared about where demons come from, there's a free download. It's What is a Demon? It's a free download. You might find it. People might find it interesting.
Okay, and I'm guessing there's a whole bunch more information,
Oh yeah,
articles.
oh yeah.
Can people contact you if they want help?
Yes, there's questions and comments on the website. If I can help, if I can help them, I will.
Okay,
So
in your www.inyourfacedemonsingular.com.
right,
Okay, and then
right.
also TDS Ministries, Tearing Down Stronghold Ministries. That's they're both the same website.
Yeah, you can put in tdsministries.com. You can put in inyourfacedemon.com
Okay.
or tdsministries.org too.
Okay, so let's end with this. We got about 14 minutes left. Really appreciate your time, Jess. This has been an awesome interview. Just recently, a friend of mine attended your Tuesday night deliverance last Tuesday. Okay, like 5 days ago, 4 or 5 days ago, and you were casting out ascended masters, spirit guides, and then you mentioned Semyaza, the leader of the fallen angels from the Book of Enoch.
Uh-huh.
So Semyaza also, in a different spelling, makes an appearance in ufology in the world of aliens as
Uh-huh.
Semyaze, the lead Pleiadian contact or alien that contacted Billy Myers in the early 70s. That's an ongoing case. She is supposedly this totally beautiful blonde alien, voluptuous, contacted Billy Myers in the 70s. Since then, she's contacted JJ and Desiree Hurtak, and they wrote the Book of Knowledge, the Keys of Enoch, where they quote Semyaze often, and also Dr. Fred Bell, who's since left us. And Dr. Fred Bell wrote Rays of Truth, Crystals of Light. It's like a 700-page book where he breaks down the cabal. You know, they're like Semyaze's telling him about the Illuminati and stuff as if she's separate from it. And then bestowing upon us these gifts, right? This technology, this Pleiadian technology is supposed to raise our consciousness, clean up the pollution, give us free energy machines, anti-gravity, that kind of a thing. But Semyaze is just a derivative spelling of Semyaza. Okay, and so that I noticed that in ufology, and so that tells me that at least some aliens are really demons that are just posing as aliens. So when you're casting out ascended masters, spirit guides, and I'm guessing at some point you've run into aliens, what is the connection? Are they just using these things to pose to get into us? What's going on here?
You know, there's a lot of different opinions, Brett.
That's for sure.
But my opinion is that aliens are demons, and the reason I'll tell you that is because in the book of Genesis, or pardon me, the book of Exodus, Moses appeared before Pharaoh, and he threw down just a wooden stick, and it turned into, we assume it's a snake, and maybe it was a crocodile. Anyway, it even scared him when it first happened. Then it happens when he's in the desert. God said, throw it down. He sees. So anyway, the magicians, the Egyptian magicians, were able to do that too. Their sticks also turned into whatever it was, serpent, crocodile, whatever it was. But Moses's serpent, whatever it was, ate theirs. That would tell me that through magic or through that beings from the spirit realm can take on physical bodies. That's what that tells me. That they can take on physical bodies. So if they could turn in, if the Egyptian magicians could turn their sticks into a snake or crocodile, whatever they turned it into, then then spiritual beings can take on physical bodies. That's
Right.
my opinion. That's my opinion, Brad. I know there's others, but that's my opinion.
Right.
So my opinion is that aliens is a demon with a new makeover.
Okay. And so then a spirit guide who would appear to a person to like guide them or teach them or hold them from danger, maybe similar to a guardian angel. That would
Uh-huh.
be just a different persona then that a demon could take to ingratiate themselves with a human as a way to get in.
Yes, Jesus, pardon me, the Bible talks about angels of light and deceiving spirits. And yes, I had a woman in Sarah. I had her. Uh, she had a spirit mother or a spirit guide, and that thing's name was Justice. Sarah, when she was in the second grade, was allowed to go to school for 2 weeks, and she told them what was going on with her family. Family jerked her out of school. She never went to school another day. She told me that her spirit guide or her spirit mother took the nursing test for her and passed it aced it without her even ever having any formal education. And so the spirit guide Justice had been with Sarah since she was 3 years old. I believed it was a demon. I told it was a demon. She said, I'm not a demon. I'm part of Sarah. You can't cast me out. Sarah would never let you cast me out. But I ended up casting her out. And so, but when I talked to Sarah, uh, that spirit guide took on body form. I mean, Sarah didn't just hear a voice or sense something. She saw a very distinguished looking woman in a gray business suit. She never changed from time Sarah was 3 until the time Sarah was 34. She always looked the same. She was a just strikingly beautiful, distinguished looking businesswoman in a gray business suit. Another one that I did was the woman. I asked her if she could see her spirit guide. She said, yes, I can have coffee with her. When I go to get a new dress, she tells me whether I look good or look bad. And she said, we have coffee together. So even spirit guides can take on human form. They have to be a higher level. Garden variety demons, Bret, can't do that. Garden variety demons are just written, you have a spirit of fear, you cast it, I cast it out of you. I have a spirit of anger, you cast it out of me. That's what we call garden variety demons. But higher orders of demons can take on human form.
That's
So,
absolutely fascinating. So
yeah.
just a little commentary about Semyase. So, they say Lucifer can be an angel of light and he will come bearing gifts. And so Semyase, the leader of the fallen angels, is often equated with Lucifer. And
Uh,
so this alien Semyase appears as a beautiful blonde woman, very sexy and attractive. What better way to ensnare a human male than to appear in that way? And then to offer gifts like high technology to raise your consciousness, clean up pollution, et cetera, et cetera. And so I don't know why more people in ufology don't see that connection. And whether it's true or not, I'm not exactly sure, but that connection is distinctly there. And so my
uh,
take on that is that because everything operates by contract, Semyase is literally offering a contract to humanity by appearing and offering these gifts. So if we accept those gifts from this person, then we're okay with her. Then with whatever she is and whatever she's got going with us, and largely humanity, well, I think first doesn't know about it, but has stayed silent. The ones that do have stayed silent or accepted the gifts, and either one of those positions in the business world on Earth gives a green light for that contract to move forward. So if you stay silent, let's say you acquiesce to the contract. If you
yes.
accept the gift, or if you cash the check, let's say, you're agreeing to the terms. So I see that as ingenious. Another example of how the Bible is correct, that Lucifer is a deceiver and will come bearing gifts, pretend like he's an angel of light. And it's just fascinating to me. So last quick question about Ascended Masters. I just attended an Ascended Master conference up in Mount Shasta about a month and a half ago. These people are just loving, full of care for humanity. They want nothing more than to help humanity. And they talk about Jesus, right? Jesus is there. They call Jesus the avatar of the last zodiacal age. Now we're in the age of Aquarius, and they say it's Saint Germain. You have any commentary about Saint Germain?
No, I'm sorry, I'm not aware of that, Bret. You would be the expert on that, not me.
Okay, good answer. Short, quick, brief, and honest. I like it. Okay, so just to wrap up here, Jess, you also carry the load of deliverances at the Isaiah 61 conferences that are in March and October, twice a year. Other pastors, Dave and Cheryl, Graham Powell used to be there. There's another one, a guy, I always forget who that was. When I first started, I would get like 4 deliverances in one day. Right? I think the church is moving back to that, Church of Glad Tidings in Yuba City. I think they're moving back to that because I saw Cheryl try to do a deliverance and then her voice went out. So even I, in the timing, I don't find that coincidental. So even the pastors on your level can be attacked, right?
Absolutely, Bret, and she is being attacked. They are trying to silence her because Cheryl has more spirit. I deem Cheryl having a whole lot more spiritual authority than I do. And they are trying to shut her down. She started that. She started praying over people, and people were getting freedom, and they shut her down. They attacked her voice, and Daniel had to take over in that session. So
okay, I was there. I saw that. Daniel actually did a really good job.
He did a great job. My word, he did a great job.
Yeah, he had all the scriptures right at the end of his tongue, and he just spit it out. It was like, I compare you guys to like rappers. You have certain phrases, you have certain scriptures, and then your boisterousness, and you kind of roll that back around. It's like an art form. And each one of you has your own different style. Some a little more boisterous than others. Cheryl's a little more calm. It's absolutely fascinating. So Jess, I'm going to wrap it up here. I'm going to have a couple closing words, but I want to tell you thank you so much for your time. I really feel like this interview has spread some information that needs to get out to people. Even if people don't just jump right on the bandwagon right away, you've given them lots to think about. And that's really the key, because it's the person's choice that has to come to the Lord. It's the person's choice to see the reality for what it is. And you can't force anyone to do it. That's one of the things I love about your church. You let people, you give them the space to come to the Lord in their own time. And I really appreciate that. I know that's what's helped me to see a different picture of the earth. Thank you so much. And I will be in touch, because you and I have some business to take care of here in the future, hopefully sooner than later. So
it was great spending a little time with you, Bret. God bless.
God bless. All right, Jess, you have a great day.
Okay.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to the eTalk.tv live haunted marathon and the Bret Lueder show version of that. Stay tuned for the next show, which is The Energy That Surrounds Us with Michael Kopf. That's from 2 to 4 Pacific time. The reperception with JP from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific time. And then we're going to round out Saturday's events here with Late Night in the Rockies from 6 to 9 p.m. Thank you so much, everybody. Make sure you check out Jess Parker's website. It is tds.com, tdsministries.com, www.tdsministries.com, or www.inyourfacedemon.com. And you can schedule a private session with him. You can check the schedule of the church. The church has the Isaiah 61 Spiritual Warfare Conference, where they teach you how to do deliverance, so that you don't have to wait around for events like this. Literally, you can do this to yourself or your friends. They teach you how to live the life so you can get the power. And it's made a huge difference in my life, especially in my studies of aliens. So don't forget this facet when you're studying aliens. Don't discount it. There is a truth there to Jesus, aside from the folly that I would call it, that man has made of the industry of church with all its hypocrisies and its money-making scheme. So thank you everybody. You can check me out on Facebook, leave your comments. This will also be posted in both of my shows on BitChute and Rumble, the Bret Lueder Show, and the channel is the Esoteric Guide channel. You guys all have a great day. Thank you for coming. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. This has been episode 56.